Welcome to Here Where You Belong, your go-to podcast for exploring belonging with your host and belonging expert, Dia Irby. We are thrilled to have you join us. Together, we'll dive into the depths of what it means for each of us to find our own place in the world, whether it's within our communities, our relationships, or within ourselves. Today's episode is meant to inspire, uplift, and remind you that no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. So grab a cozy spot and settle in. Welcome to Here Where You Belong.
Hello, awesome belongers. Welcome home to another episode of Here Where You Belong podcast. I have someone amazing for you to meet today. He's a high school dropout. What? Wait, there's more to come on that. Who has helped thousands of businesses in over 30 industries across 10 countries to start, grow, and scale. Wow. I'm Dia Irby, your host, and get ready to be blessed and inspired. Welcome, Athin Cassiotis. Hey, Athin.
Hey, Dia. Thank you so much. Great to be here.
I'm so glad you're here. Well, let's hear a little bit more about our guest because he is fascinating. He's a business growth expert, an investor, an international speaker, a coach, a mentor, a consultant, and a podcast host. Athin helps businesses grow and scale their businesses to create wealth and freedom. He, as I said, he went from dropping out of high school and being told he would never be able to study and never be successful, from that to helping thousands of businesses in over 30 industries across 10 countries, like I mentioned, start, grow, and scale. Athin Cassiotis hosts the Business Growth Show. 4 years now. Wow. On his podcast, he interviews successful entrepreneurs and celebrities, including Jay Abraham, Bruce Buffer, Jillian Michaels, Caroline Stanbury, and Joe Foster. And recently, yours truly, release date to be determined. He's spoken on stage in front of thousands of people in Los Angeles, along with many stages in Australia. He's personally worked with many of Australia's biggest brands, including Kmart, Target, or shall we say Target, Westfield, Catch, Kohl's, and Department of Defense. He has an MBA majoring in strategic management and entrepreneurship. Oh, I guess he got his high school diploma. And he's an NLP practitioner, master practitioner coach. He's authored 9 Keys to Business Growth Mastery. And I'm sure it is packed full of knowledge, gem, wisdom. It's an ebook available on his website, and we'll put that link in the show notes, but it's athincassiotis.com, so you can look that up. Wow, are we honored to have you join us today, Athin? Did I leave anything out? Do you want to add anything?
Thank you so much, Dia, for the lovely welcome. And there's definitely a bit of a mouthful there. I think you covered, pretty much everything. I'm sure we'll delve into a lot more depth into it as we have an awesome chat today.
Well, great. Yes, you have accomplished quite a bit. So in this journey, I can only imagine that when you dropped out of high school, when you were told that you would never amount to anything, basically, how did you feel? Did you have a place of belonging, or tell us that story of how, well, I'm going to give you the mic.
It's an interesting story where I grew up in Adelaide, South Australia, which is a smaller capital city, a bit more like a big country town. And my parents were both high school teachers. So they wanted me to go through the school system. And I actually started my entrepreneurship journey selling VCD movies. This is when movies like Fast and the Furious #1 were on 2 CDs with a CD burner, and you could burn them. And I was selling them at high school to my friends at 15 years old. And then, towards the end of high school, I started just heading out there, wasn't enjoying it anymore, and basically dropped out of my final year. You can imagine my parents not liking that, being teachers. So it was and it was I felt that I was being put into a system that wasn't right for me. You know, my the way I studied was different. The way that I wanted to do things was different, and I was trying to be put into a box. So I didn't really feel that I belonged there, and I didn't want to go through something that is going to put me down a path that I didn't want to take. So I just went, you know what, I'm dropping out, and I'm going to do my own thing. So yeah, my dad has 3 degrees, so he just said to me, Athin, you'll never be able to study at that point. And one of my high school teachers said, you'll never be successful. Can you imagine telling that to like a 17-year-old, right? But lucky I won a lot of championships in sport and tennis growing up. So I was never the best naturally talented player, but I'd work the hardest and I'd keep improving myself to be one of the best players in the team. So I took that on going, watch me prove you wrong, basically, to those people, and, got a job from there. So it was interesting where, I went into the workforce, and then I started getting, I guess, an initial place of belonging there, for a big environmental company, and, did a lot of awesome stuff there, worked my way up, and then got tapped on the shoulder by the head office in Sydney. So they moved me to Sydney, and, did a lot of cool things in the business development department there. And then, it was funny. We were having Friday drinks, and it was a cool thing we used to do every week. And, I was feeling this sense of belonging in this company. I've been with them for a while now, 5.5 years in Adelaide. Then I kept, working there in Sydney. And then everyone was talking about degrees. And I was like, I had nothing, right? Like I dropped out of high school. So this is where there was that sense of like, I was losing a little bit of that belonging. I felt I was very belonged in that company, but I was like, okay, I feel like I'm missing out here. Maybe I should learn something. And I want to learn more about business. And I realized I could get into doing an MBA, a master's of business administration at one of the top universities, just based on over 8 years of experience working, which was great. So I got to skip high school and a bachelor and go straight to the MBA, which was,
I love it.
Yeah. And it was challenging for me to study, right? Like, I had to push myself to go through that, but I learned a lot of the core subjects. And then this is where things changed, where there was a big change of management. And this is when the belonging element, I lost again, right? So after being in an amazing team, we were kicking a lot of goals, there's a change of management, and they were just, getting rid of a lot of people, everything like that. So they wanted to change the whole culture, whatever. And yeah, it was not a good place. And I roughed it out as one of the last few people, in my team. But after a little while, I was like, I had to get out of here. It wasn't for me anymore. So, I left there after 10.5 years and started my first company, a waste management consulting company, took all my knowledge and worked with, started working with the big brands, Westfield. I know you have the Westfield shopping centers there in the US as well, and saved them like $4 million a year, 20 million over 5 years, and worked with a lot of other big brands. And then, from there, I was like, okay, now I can add some value, where in the company, I wasn't allowed to do these specific projects. I almost had like the chains on me, right? Where it's like, Athin, we just want you to do this. I'm like, what about all these other cool things that I can do that I can add a lot of value? And when that changed, I was like, well, I have to do it on my own then. If this company is not going to allow me to do it, I was able to do it from a consulting element. And then people would ask me questions when I go to networking events, and they said, Athin, what do you think about this? I've got this business problem. I said, okay, well, why don't you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? And they're like, that's really good. I need to write that down. Can you tell me that again? And this would happen multiple times. I was like, okay, well, I've got a very good strategic brain with my MBA, with my business experience, with my coaches and mentors that I'm learning from. Should create a business out of this. So I started business coaching and mentoring now. It's been over 5 years doing that. First business is still going as well. And, really helping business owners grow and scale with my 9 keys, with my MBA background, and then doing NLP master practitioner training as well from the mindset perspective, which is so important too. So it's been an interesting journey. And I feel as an entrepreneur, it's a bit more of a lonely route, right? Because you're at the top, you're taking a lot of the risks. You've got to be able to grow yourself. The business is really a reflection of your self-growth and how much you're willing to learn and upgrade your mindset and the skills and strategies and tactics compared to, working for someone else. So I found that, it was by luck where 3 months into I started my business, one of my friends bought a ticket to a 3-day business event, and he got a call one week before saying you can bring a friend for free. And he called me up and he said, can you come to this? And I was like, this is the sign that I needed, because I did the really risky thing and I quit my job and started the business the next day. I burnt the boats, no cash flow coming in, no nothing, right? So I wouldn't necessarily recommend that, but I just felt like I had to go, and then I had to put myself under pressure. I just backed myself. And, from there, I upgraded my mindset. I learned some sales skills. I learned all these things. And then I started to see results. And I was like, wow, okay, I need to keep investing in myself. I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in myself now to get to where I am, because every time I did, I realized I would go to another level, in terms of what I could do and my personal success, or how I could help others. And I just kept investing, kept learning from people, and found these communities at events and masterminds is where I really felt a belonging, because there was people that were similar to me that were going on the journey, and I could hang around and have those conversations, compared to other people in my life as well. So there's a little, bit about my story, and their different flows of not belonging and belonging that became part of that too.
I think you hit on something very important, because people don't leave companies, they leave environments where they don't feel valued. Explain, if anyone's listening that might not understand what an NLP master practitioner is or does. Can we get into that?
Yeah, definitely. Of course. So NLP stands for neuro linguistic programming, right? So like neuro is the brain, linguistic is like talking, right? So basically, it's a bit of a roadmap for how we live life and how we understand ourselves in a very simple sense. So I think everybody should do NLP, because basically, first, it's an understanding of, okay, well, we've get million bits of information every second, right, into our brain. Then our brain deletes, distorts, and generalizes them, and then it filters them down to about 200 bits of information, and then more like 7 plus or minus 2 chunks of information as well at each time. So this is the filtering process in our brain. So that it teaches you about this process, about what we do, and this is why sometimes you look on the shelf, I can't find the salt. Where's the salt? And someone walks up and they're going, the salt's right there. What are you talking about? And it was just, and that's your reticular activating system, your RAS, right? That's focusing on something. Just like if you're thinking about a Tesla, maybe, right? You want to buy, you start to see Teslas everywhere because your reticular activating system is turned on for Teslas. They were always there, but now you've told your brain, do not delete, distort, generalize that. I want you to focus on that, right? So it's really an initial understanding of how the brain works. Then there's a lot of breakthroughs and tools and coaching techniques that you understand, so to be able to help people to get breakthroughs, to come out of what's holding them back, because we've all got limiting beliefs and things that hold us back through our life. Taking people through a process and arming tools that you're able to do that. And what I love about the NLP practitioner training is that you're basically given like scripts, and you're just trying it on partners, and you're getting breakthroughs the whole time. It's not just the learning, it's actually you're getting breakthroughs the whole time. And so you're understanding coaching questions of how to use like what and how questions. I think this is great. So if you ever, because I think coaching questions, you don't have to just be a coach, because you could be a manager or a leader in a business where you have to coach somebody that's working for you, or it could even be a family member, like a child, right? Where you have to coach them through something. And never ask a why question. Because if a child hits a glass off there and a glass breaks, if you say, why did you do that? I don't know why I did it, right? But if you say, oh, what happened there? Or how did you do that? What and how questions, right, are the great questions to dig deeper, and people can actually answer those questions. And that delves deep into the problem, because most people, the problem that they say the problem is only the surface level problem. We need to ask the what and how questions to get deeper and deeper. And I remember on my podcast, you talked about these 7 levels deep, right? So it's going deeper to find what's that root cause, that root belief that's holding them back. And you can do this normally with coaching questions and help them to get the breakthrough, because normally with mindset, this is the difference between coaching and mentoring to an extent, where NLP teaches you coaching is asking the right questions to help the client get the breakthrough themselves, whereas mentoring is more telling them, this is what I want you to do. Excuse me. So instead of telling them the answer, if you can help to lead them to the answer, get the breakthrough, they're going to have a bigger breakthrough and then be able to move forward. And I'll give an example of a tool that you'll get. So there's a like to dislike. So anything that you like, let's say you're eating too much chocolate, right? Or there was someone very close to me. I'll give a real example of this, right? Someone very close to me was eating bread with like huge amounts of butter. I'm talking like a
Half a
big
stick.
portion of butter in between them, right? And two pieces of bread and two of those a day. This is not very good for your health, right? You can imagine. And they were like, I don't know why I eat it. I just eat it. And I just said, well, I've got an NLP in my toolbox, right, from NLP that I can do a like to dislike. Is there something that you really hate? And we found something that you really hate. And you understand that there are representational systems. So we are like audio, visual, kinesthetic, right, people. And we can change these representational systems in NLP. And I changed it from her liking it to disliking it within 10 minutes, and she's never eaten it again.
And people need to feel like they belong. People need to operate to their best ability. And the NLP can help you help them ask the right questions. So don't ask why, ask what and how. Was it?
Yep,
How?
that's right.
That would make a big difference. And yes, I talk about the reticular activator system as well, because I mean, that's why you can buy a house near a railroad track and, a couple, or near an airport. And after a while, you never hear the trains or the planes because your brain said, that's not important. We're not going to let the body know that we're hearing that. And there's so many stimuli that come in that our body protects us or doesn't bother us with. And the mindset, there's a comparison about how you look at the world, and a man sees what he looks for, right? But I work on having a mindset or looking for like a hummingbird. A hummingbird looks for sweet nectar, as opposed to a vulture who's flying around looking for dead animals to eat, the garbage collector of our world. That I'm sure that comes into play when you're helping people with their mindset. Right?
Yeah, definitely does. That's that limiting beliefs, negative thoughts compared to positive thoughts, right? And whatever you focus on expands in that area there when you understand it. So if you're trauma bonding or just complaining all the time to your friends and everything like that, you're just going to have more problems because you keep talking about the problem. That's not going to help the problem. You got to be aware of what the problem is, yes, and then it's like, how do I change that? One thing that I'll say very simply is that everyone gets negative thoughts from time to time. You can build yourself up over time to have less. But when you get a negative thought that comes into your mind, let's just say, if we're talking from a belonging sense in a business, maybe it's just like, I'm not that skilled. Maybe you're like you're doing a bit of comparison syndrome, right? In the office. And this could happen, right? Standard people. And then it's like, I'm not that skilled in this role. That's a negative thought, right? And if you keep telling yourself that for decades, you've programmed yourself to think like that. So firstly, you have to be aware and you have to catch that thought when it comes in and go, I'm not that skilled at this, right? Or so then you have to flip it in the opposite of that. Okay, well, what do I want to believe in the present tense instead? So maybe it's I'm highly skilled statements. I am a really great statements in this. Like, I'm a master at this role, whatever that is. And you have to program your brain and believe it in the present tense. Because if you think about it in the future, it will always be in the future. So you have to believe it in the present and you have to tell yourself this new belief every day, if possible, multiple times a day, but every day for a period of time until your unconscious mind believes it. But a guy came to me that was really on the down, and he found me online. He went from 15 staff to 5 staff. And he said to me, Athin, I don't know what's going on. I need your help. And, he found me on a video on a podcast, which is amazing. And I said, all right, let's work for a period of time. I'm going to do a mindset session on you first. And I did one mindset session on him. And he had his biggest month ever in his business the month after. No strategies, no tactics yet, right? So it shows you that your mindset can lift you up or it can pull you down, and that can change over time depending on your environment, like the people you're hanging around. If you're hanging around people that are complaining a lot, if you're hanging around people that are lifting you up, it can, depending on what's happening in your business. So having people in your corner where you belong right? That you've got a great group. Maybe it's your top 5, or maybe it's you're getting coaches and mentors. You're part of a community, people there to cheer you on and to lift you up in those times when you're down. These are the differences that help you to move forward so that you don't quit. And then if you don't quit, you always succeed.
This is great, but we are going to take a little break and we'll be right back. Athin, thank you. Hey there! Isn't my guest amazing? So glad you joined us today. In this world that often feels disconnected, building community and fostering belonging are essential. That's why I created this podcast, to bring inspiring people to you, to encourage you to create that sense of belonging and community, no matter where you are. If you're being blessed by my guest, and we have some more, like, subscribe, and share this podcast. You know who needs to hear this. Stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. Now, back to our amazing guest. And we're back with my fantabulous guest, Athin Cassiotis. Athin, we're so glad you're here, all the way from Australia to North Carolina. On the second half of the podcast, I like to ask my guest, what is your favorite quote? And expound on it as you will. So, what's your quote, Athin?
Thanks, Dia. So my favorite quote is, focus on what you want to create it. And another way that I'll say this is, I think this is a Henry Ford quote, is whether you think you're wrong or whether you think you're right, you're right. So if you focus on the things that are wrong, that are happening, whether it's in your workplace, in a belonging sense, in your life, in your business, you're just going to be focusing on that. And that's what you're going to create: more challenges, more issues. Whereas if you focus on what you want, then you will create it. And this comes down even to a quantum physics element here, which I won't get into. That's a little bit too deep. But, basically, with quantum physics, and this is being proven now, is that intention is very powerful, and there's an observer effect. So when we focus on something, we have conscious awareness of it, and we focus on something, we are there to create it and there to attract it to ourselves. So I think a lot of people out there don't focus on that, right? So number one is, do you have a goal? Do you have a plan, right, about what you're going to do there? Are you just thinking day to day? Or are you going, okay, this is where my goal is for this year, or maybe it's in a few years' time? Like what's the bigger plan, the bigger strategy that you want to achieve? And then work backwards from there. That's the very simple way of doing it. And then you put in smaller goals that work you towards the big goal. Now, there are going to be things that pop up there. If you say, all of my team are not good together and it's challenging and I don't like hiring people and all these types of limiting things, if you're owning a business, then that's what you're going to create. Whereas even if you have some challenges within your team and your belonging, you have to think about that. I'm creating an amazing team here. We're working together. We're growing together here, and we're all going onto the same path, in that area there to build the momentum and enjoy what we do, right, in our workplace, which I think is so important there. So no matter whether you're the business owner that's leading it, or whether you're a leader within that business, or whether you're just working within that business, everyone wants to work in a workplace that they love working for, right? So focus on creating things like that. Focus on what you want, and that's what will happen when you create. And it's amazing when you have extreme clarity on this, when you're writing it down, when you're really focusing on it, and the message that you're putting out is there, you will be amazed at the opportunities that you create, because you're basically vibrating, or you're putting out a particular frequency, right? We are these beings, right? When you look at matter, everything, the table, everything is not solid, right? That we're here. It's all vibrating atoms, if you understand this. So it's all matter. So if you when you understand this, it's like, well, if I put an intention out there, I can actually pull this through, and I can attract anything that's around me. It's amazing where, like, I started focusing on a new venture journey now. I updated my personal brand, and I have my new direction. It's really crystal clear. I'm putting my direct message out there. It's amazing the opportunities that have coming to me since that's happened in the last month, right? So focus on what you want, be really clear, have a lot of clarity on that message, and you will attract the right things. And sometimes you can get a lot. Like right now, I've got a lot going on, right? Like there's so many opportunities, but it's like momentum's building and you've just got to roll with it. And there's a great saying I learned through NLP actually, which was the universe will only give you what you can handle, right? The universe will only give you what you can handle. So if you get an opportunity that you think is like, wow, this is big, right? Maybe you're going up into a role in a business. Maybe it's another business opportunity. Maybe it's a way to partner, whatever that is, that opportunity. It means that you are ready for it, even if you've never done it before. So you've got to then have the beliefs that I can do this. Do I need any help from anybody else? Do I need to ask anyone else any questions? Or how can I make this happen? And then just back yourself to do that and use the Sir Richard Branson quote is like, say yes and figure out the how after. And if you do that and you keep building momentum, then anything is really possible for you in your life.
I just had this picture come to mind. When you have to be intentional. And let's say there's somebody that's driving a tour bus just around randomly and come join us, come join us. Nobody's going to get on the bus unless they say, this is a tour bus to go to New York City. So you have to be intentional. And in your workplace, in your company, in your life, you're not going to have people feel like they belong to a community with you unless you intentionally let them know where that community is going. So that's one of the ways you can help your people at work feel like they belong, that they're part of the culture because they know the intentions or the purpose of the company. And I'm sure that's part of what you've helped these businesses with, to be intentional, to focus on where you're going. And so, yes, I'm totally right there with you. What you focus on expands.
Definitely.
Did you say that, or we talked about that?
That's about the same line. Yes, it's all good. There's more than one way to skin a cat, is a saying here. Not that I've ever skinned a cat before, but yes.
I was just going to say, have you skinned a cat?
I love it.
Yes. So when or how do you know that you belong, or what makes you know or feel like you belong somewhere?
Yeah, I think it's that you can share openly with people and not feel any judgment in those moments, and that you're part of people that get you in that area there. And that's my area of how I feel that I'm belonging. And I tell this to a lot of my clients and people, where if I'm in an environment where I don't like it, like let's say it's extremely negative, or it's a bit toxic or whatever that is, then I just remove myself from that environment. Or if I'm around people that are very negative, I just drift from them and slowly, basically stop hanging around them. So because I know that this affects me. So I want to be, and this is about standards that I would say here, right? So what are your standards about who you want to hang around, what type of workplace that you want to be in terms of belonging? Everything like that there is extremely important, so that you don't just feel obligated that you have to catch up with people. And this is from a workplace perspective. Obviously that's ideal, but if you get a toxic workplace, obviously you don't want to work there. But even just from people outside in your life, in whatever that you're meeting, then in your communities, in your other groups, whatever like that is that you're connecting with, don't just be there that you have to be there. Don't just talk to the people. Don't feel like you have an obligation. If it's bringing you down, and you walk away with energy loss and your brain's all muddled. So have standards going. Okay. One of my coaches says, I only deal with people that are at least 85% optimistic. Right. So, which is an interesting, cool stat, right? Because no one's fully optimistic, but they look at the positive side. Even if bad things happen, it's like, okay, that's fine. It happened. What can I learn from this? How can I spin this in a positive way? Because there's always a positive light to look on that. So that's what I see. I want people around me. I'd rather have less people that I hang around that are like that, and have the less people that are all optimistic, focusing on what they want. They're wanting to grow and have similar values to me. I think that the values element is a big one as well, where I have similar values in the people that I'm belonging around, and that I enjoy, those areas there. So that these are some of the things for me: is having the standards, being true to them, being true to yourself, and then finding the people that are like that. And then once you find your tribe, so to speak, whether it's your workplace, outside of that, really enjoy that, really foster that. And because we all have an authenticity element, and this is something that I'm bringing out a lot more. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily show their full selves. A lot of the time, there's a little bit of a mask there. And I think when you're in these safe environments where you belong, you can really show your authenticity, and then people will connect with you much more, and they're not judging you based on that. It's more of a curious mind. It's like, wow, look at Athin, he's amazing. Dia's amazing. They think a little bit differently, or they're saying this. Tell me more about this. Show me these elements, and where you're able to be free and just do the things that you love without judgment. That to me, it is belonging.
That would be going back to let's surround ourselves with hummingbirds and not buzzards, because who wants to have a bunch of buzzards around, right?
Definitely.
So I would guess what we've already talked about would be considered your greatest accomplishment.
I think the other part is that I was able to, work with these big brands myself, right? Where I was able to, beat a lot of the top consulting firms that have 20 plus staff, and I was by myself, right? And I would win these contracts because of what I've learned and what I've believed, and it's because of my growth, right, and my belief in myself about what I can do here. So, and I think this is just going to keep getting more in terms of these massive achievements that are happening. So, this is where that focus on me and serving and going, how can I be unique? And this is where, the unique selling proposition is really understanding what makes you different, whether you're working in a team, whether you're working as the business owner, what makes you different? Because that's really the superpower. When you understand what makes you different, then you can have these massive achievements. And if you can articulate that very well, then you can do it. And, I was able to do entrepreneurship subjects in my MBA, and like I even did something very interesting, right? Where the entrepreneurship subjects came towards the end of my course. They just started it. And I was like, I want to do that. I was in the middle of a finance course, and I was like, these entrepreneurship subjects were 2 subjects worth. They were really big subjects, but I only had 5 subjects left when I was going to complete these. So I wasn't going to be able to do all 3 of them. So I actually purposely dropped out of the finance course and failed it on purpose so that I didn't use this. And the guy was like, why did you fail that? I said, I did it on purpose. So I could still do and he goes, no one else would do that in uni. They would just want to complete the subject. And I said, yeah, but I'm looking at the big goal. I want to do that. Right. So the only way, I don't care if I have to spend that few extra $1,000 on the money doesn't matter. It's the end result. Right. So don't think about the money, about spending money. It's like, money is about investing in yourself was the biggest thing for me, and investing in what's going to get me a return personally to help me in life, in business, and all of that there. So don't be put into a corner and think there's only one way of doing things. There's more than one way. Work out what's the best way and do it. So I think it's my way of thinking, strategically thinking ahead, many moves ahead is the way that I'm going. I think that's one of my biggest attributes in businesses that I help and for myself. And then going, what do I want to achieve? What are the potential outcomes? And then, okay, let's do this and move forward. And then I'm already planning many moves ahead than others, like a chess player.
Well, I was just going to ask you, do you play chess?
I did growing up. I used to play chess championships growing up, when I was at
primary school. I knew that. You are a chess, I see a thread in your life. It's like you have a goal and you're going to figure out how to do it. You're going to get there and not be going through the motions that everybody expects everybody to do. That's why you dropped out of school. Well, this isn't getting me anywhere. I have other things I want to do, and this is not helping me. You were brave. You stood up for you knew yourself and who you were and what you were gifted at and what you were interested in. You intentionally made choices to get you to the goal. Same thing as failing your finance class. You intentionally did that so that you could reach your bigger goal. and I'm sure that's part of what you help the businesses that you work with understand, that they need to see what their end game is so they can come up with their strategy. How to capture the king. Wait, queen. No, it's king.
It is the king. That's right. The queen is the most powerful by moving everywhere on the board, but the king is the one that you've got to
The
capture.
one you got to capture. Yeah.
Yeah. And the
Isn't
many
that
moves
just
ahead.
like life? Behind every
Yeah,
man, a great man is a great woman. Okay.
that's right. Yes, it's that strategically many moves ahead is so important, right? If this happens, what could happen here? If that happens, what could happen? Because you're very prepared in situations, whether it's going for a job, going for a raise in a business, whether it's working to pitch to somebody to get their business, whether it's to partner with somebody else. Because then, if you're many moves ahead and you've already thought about this, you're going to basically get the result, right? You're already thinking like that. And I aim, to help my clients think like this. And it was just a very quick one. One of my clients, we did so much, very successful, like care business. We, had to remove a lot of toxic people, right, in the business that were doing that, improve a lot of systems. She was pregnant during this whole year that we were working together, had the baby towards the end, still working with me. The baby was on the calls and stuff like that. We did so much, got the business to be able to work while she was, like that. And at the end of the year, she's like, oh, I don't know. I found a coach that's sort of specific to my industry. I said, listen, business is business. I understand the industry as well. Doesn't matter about that. We've created such a great foundation for growth here. And she goes, all right, that's fine. 3 months later, she calls me. She says, Athin, when you're a strategist and you think many moves ahead, I didn't know how important that was, because when you were telling me about what I could do, you would tell me the different possibilities, and I was always many moves ahead of everybody else. This new coach was just telling me to do things, didn't tell me what could potentially happen, and they had to shut the business down, put it into liquidation 3 months later, right? Which is crazy.
What?
Now, and I
Was
was
she
like,
saving money going with a different coach or
well,
something?
do you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, not everyone's equal. And if you don't think like that, things in your business, don't just follow people blindly, ask the right questions. And this is why, in my 9 keys, the business growth mastery, mindset's one, but I teach all the areas of business. I said, you need to know enough about all of these areas of business so you can ask the right questions to whoever else is doing it. Let's say you're outsourcing something to somebody or to another team or whatever. You need to know enough that you can ask the right questions to say, do they know what they're talking about? And are they actually going to help you long term and not put you into a hole, in the long term factor? So I think that's so important. And she thanked me, and she learned the lesson, right, that was there in that area. And maybe I should have pushed a little bit harder, but I just wanted to share that it's such an important skill, and if it's not natural to you, is find people, whether it's me, whether it's somebody else, that can help you to think like that. Maybe start playing chess, and then you can create real big success, because no matter what happens in your way, you're already many moves ahead of everybody else.
As we close, do you have any parting words that you would like to share?
Thanks, Dia. It's been a pleasure being on your show as well. And yes, we could probably do a 3-hour Joe Rogan, but we don't have time for that. So what I would like to share is that, just believe in yourself, in whatever that is. And sometimes the biggest shift is an identity shift that you need to do. So beliefs are one part of it, but identity is the other part. So are you linking your identity just being a worker in a particular role, or do you need to shift that into being more of a leader in a different role? Do you need to shift it maybe to a business owner, to an entrepreneur, an investor, whatever stage that you're at? Shift that identity, and then what are the beliefs that support that identity? And then that will give you like a quantum leap, a quantum shift very massively into going into that next phase of yourself, that you now see yourself as this bigger person in your identity. So that would be my biggest one. If you want to shift very quickly to that next level of your life, understand what that identity is, step into that identity, tell yourself the beliefs that support that identity, and you can be anyone you want, create anything that you want, and find an amazing people group belonging, that you're there, that you're enjoying what you're doing as well. And it's been a pleasure. Dee, thanks for having me on the show.
So awesome, Athin. So people, my belongers, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember, you belong. So glad you could join us on Here Where You Belong. Until next time, bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to Here Where You Belong. We hope today's episode has inspired you to embrace the beauty of belonging in your own life. Remember, no matter where you are or where you're headed, you have a place where you truly belong. Join us again next time for more insightful conversations and heartwarming stories. Until then, stay connected, stay true to yourself, and always remember that you belong.